So now that we know how to combine like terms, we're going to practice simplifying expressions using the distributive property and then distributing and combining like terms. So for the distributive property, you need to remember that when you have the A on the outside times the parentheses B plus C, that's the same thing as saying A times B plus A times C. Now if you have A on the outside with B minus C on the inside of the parentheses, that's the same thing as saying A times B minus A times C. Okay, so that's just the distributive property. So these first 18 examples go over how to use the distributive property. So we're going to do a couple together, then a couple you're going to pause the video and try on your own. So for number one, you have to go ahead and distribute whatever's on the outside to both parts on the inside. If there's more than just 2 on the inside, then you distribute it to every single piece on the inside. So I'm going to start by passing out my 7. So I have 7 times x, which is 7x, and then 7 times 4, which is a positive 28. And that's how we apply the distributive property. For number 2, we're taking your 2 times b to get 2b, and then 2 times a negative 3. Okay, that minus sign goes with a 3. So 2 times a negative 3 is a negative 6. For number 3, we have a negative 4 times y to get negative 4y, and then a negative 4 times 3 to get a negative 12. For number 4, it's a negative 5 times m, which is a negative 5m, and then a negative 5 times a negative 2. And a negative times a negative is a positive, so we have a positive 10 there. Now, keep in mind, right here we have this negative on the outside. That's the same thing as saying negative 1 times whatever's on the inside. So we're doing negative 1 times y, which is a negative 1y, or just negative y, and then a negative 1 times a negative 9. A negative times a negative is a positive, and 1 times 9 is 9. Okay, so for number 6, try that on your own, and make sure you're writing your answer in the correct format. So for this one, you have 8 times 4, which is 32, and then 8 times a negative b, which is a negative 8b. But remember, when we're writing our format, we want to make sure our variable is in the front. So I'm just going to go ahead and flip that whole thing around. So you should have negative 8b plus 32. All right, I want you to try number 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. All right, so let's go over the answers for these ones. We have a negative 4 times a negative 1w. Negative 4 times a negative 1 is a positive 4. And then we bring the w, and then a negative 4 times a negative 10 is a positive 40. For 8, you should have had 10m times these 2 times together. So then 10m minus 15. Okay. For 9, we have this and then this. So negative 3 times 2x is a negative 6x. And then a negative 3 times a negative 4 is a positive 12. For number 10, we have 3m plus 3n. For number 11, x times y is xy. And then x times 4 is 4x. But we need to rewrite this because that is not in the correct format. So your real answer should be 4x plus xy. All right, and then here we have a d times c, which is a dc, and then a d times a negative 4, which is negative 4d. Now, when we write this, we want to make sure that is in the correct format too, so we need to have the c first, cd minus 4d. Okay, so then number 13, we're going to do the same thing. We're multiplying and we're multiplying. So 6a times b is 6ab. And then 6a times 2c, we're going to multiply the 6 and the 2 to get 12. And then a times c would be ac. For number 14, same idea, multiply, multiply. But now there's 3 parts, so we can't forget the third part. 2 times x is 2x. 2 times a negative y is minus 2y, and 2 times 8 is 16. Same idea for 15. 2y and x together is 2xy. X times that is a negative 5xz. And then x times 1 is x. Okay, but if we're rewriting this in the correct order, the x should go first. So it'd be x plus 2xy minus 5xz. For number 16, we do have a fraction here. Don't be scared by it. Okay, you're just doing 1/4 of 8, and 1/4 of 8 is 2. Leave the x. And then 1/4 times a negative 4 is a negative 1. Now remember, when you're multiplying fractions, you're multiplying across the top and across the bottom. Okay, so we're taking that and we're taking this. So we're doing 1/6 times 3/5. So 1/6 times 3/5 equals multiply across the top and across the bottom. So we have 3/30. And this simplifies to 1/10 x. And then 1/6 of 18 is 3. For number 18, same thing, but now we have a negative. So we're doing negative 1/8 times 4/5. So we have a negative 4/40, which does simplify to negative 1/10 x. And then negative 1/8 has a negative 24 is a positive 3. Okay, so now that you know how to distribute, we want to make sure that we are distributing and combining like terms. So for number 19, what we need to do first is we need to distribute everything first. Okay, and then once everything is simplified at that point, we're going to go ahead and combine our like terms. So we're simplifying expression. That just means that we're ensuring there's no parentheses and no like terms that can't already be combined. Okay, so step 1 is to distribute, and then step 2 is to combine. So step 1, we're going to distribute. Get rid of our parentheses first. So 8 times 2 is 16x. 8 times a negative 3 is 24. Bring down the minus 6x. Okay, and then I can go ahead and do my combining like terms, just like we did yesterday. So 16 minus 6, that's a 10x. And then bring down the minus 24. Right, same idea for 20. Distribute. We'll focus on the first one first. 9 times 2 is 18. 9 times negative 4 is minus 36. Now, when you're focusing on the second one, this is a negative 2. So make sure you are not forgetting that sign in the front. The biggest issue with these types of problems is people forget that sign in front. Do not forget about that sign. This is a negative 2 times 7, which is a negative 14, okay? And then a negative 2 times a negative 12, which is a positive 24. And now I can go ahead and combine my like terms. 18k, negative 14k, 36 negative, and a positive 24. So I can combine my like terms. 18 minus 14, that's going to be 4k. And then negative 36 plus 24 is a negative 12. Okay, so I want you to go ahead and try number 21. Now keep in mind that this minus on here means it's like a minus 1. All right, so if you went ahead and solved this, you should have 10, and this is a negative y. That's a positive 6. This is another negative y. So we're going to go ahead and identify our like terms. So I have a negative 2y, so that's a negative 1, and a negative 1, and then 10 plus 6, that's 16. All right, try 22. Again, keep in mind this is a negative 1. Make sure you pause the video. All right, so if you went ahead and solved this, you should have 6 plus 32w minus 56 minus 2w minus 1. And we want to go ahead and combine our like terms. We got a 6, a negative 56, a minus 1, a positive 32, a negative 2. So then I have 6 minus 56 minus 1 is a negative 51. And then 32 minus 2, and that's a 30W. All right, so number 23, we have fractions, but it's okay, you can still solve them. Remember, when you're multiplying your fractions, you're multiplying across the top and then across the bottom. We may also use a calculator. Desmos will let you keep it in a fraction form. So if that's helpful to you too, by all means, go ahead and do that. So go ahead, pause this, and I want you to try 23 and 24. All right, so you've tried 23 and 24. So for our first part, when we distribute 9/4 to both parts, we're left with 15 halves x, and remember, we're simplifying it as much as possible. Okay, so if you distributed, you should have had 90/12, but you want to go ahead and simplify that to 15/2. Okay, and then minus 9, and then distribute that, and you get minus 1/2 x, and then plus 2. So go ahead and combine your like terms. Don't forget that the signs are in front of the numbers. So then we're going to go ahead and add our 15 halves x minus 1/2 x. Okay, and that's going to be 14 halves. But 14 halves is the same thing as 7. So I'm going to simplify that to 7x. And then negative 9 plus 2 is a negative 7. And then for 24, should have distributed, 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 distributed. So we have 7/8 times 4/5 x. And when I simplify it, I get 7/10 x. And then I have 7/8 times 16, and that is 14. And then 3/5 times 1/2, and that is 3/10. That is as simple as it can go there. You can't simplify that. And then 3/5 times a negative 10, and that is a negative 6. So then you go ahead and combine your like terms. And then I'm left with 7/10 plus 3/10, and 7/10 plus 3/10 is equal to 10/10, which is equal to 1. So I can just leave this as x, and then I have 14 minus 6, and that is a positive 8.